Welcome to the Sessions with Sessions podcast. I'm your host, John, and we're a group of riders from up in Sudbury, Ontario. Talk about riding, talk about racing a lot, really. We're into the swing of things, guys. Here today with episode number 35 of the podcast. Pretty stoked. With Mr. Evan Lowe. How's it going, Evan?
Good, thanks.
Nice. And Mr. Bernetti.
Boys, always a pleasure.
Nice. I'd ask what you guys have been up to lately, but we all know that's why we're kind of doing this podcast. I guess we'll kind of jump right into it. Last weekend was kind of nuts, wasn't it?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So we did a pretty big event. Bernie, why don't you give the listeners kind of a quick one too on what happened last weekend?
Sure. So as you guys know, we've sort of been talking about some of the training that we've been up to this off season. So Coach Todd has been putting us through the gears on Zwift 3 times per week. Probably since October, November, we've been pretty consistently training for the entire off season. And this past weekend, we had the rolling circus head down to Hamilton, and there was 9 of us.
Nine racers and Kelly. 9
racers plus a Kelly that participated in the Paris to Ancaster 100-kilometer gravel race, and it was awesome. It was an amazing experience. Yeah, absolutely. So.
Yeah, no, it was. It was really well organized. It was weather was incredible. The route was fantastic. I don't think I've had so many different types of terrain to ride over on one ride. I mean, everything from going over someone's lawn to up their driveway and out their farm truck exit. I mean, it was just. It was pretty spectacular.
There was some interesting smells I found along the way, depending on what that farmer was into, whether animal or whatever. Yeah, so there was certainly some. It was an aromatic ride in some sections, to say the least.
Yeah, the pig farms made it hard to breathe.
So for those of you who don't know, I mean, the Paris to Ancaster race has been around for a long time, like since the 90s. And it is basically coined now as the gravel race before gravel racing was a thing. So it used to be like a cyclocross race, but it was a distance-focused cyclocross race, so not like the short track stuff that a lot of them do. It had a lot of road sections, some gravel sections, and lots of mud. And that's what they've always talked about, is lots and lots of mud sections and mud chutes. We'll talk about that more in a minute, but it historically was always a 70-kilometer event, or some smaller, smaller distances for other riders, but 70 was the big one. This was the first year, with the return of the Paris to Ancaster after a couple of years off from COVID, that they introduced the 100-kilometer race. So we were super stoked to, get to take advantage of that. We do a lot of long rides, so and we do ride a lot of really rough road and gravel here in Sudbury. So it's take advantage of going down and doing that 100-kilometer. The first time for them to do a long race like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and honestly, the day could not have been any more perfect. Woke up in the morning. It was a beautiful sunny day. There was a slight headwind throughout, but nothing too drastic. And the event was just so well put together. You're starting in Paris, rolling into a large field, and just seeing like a mass of riders everywhere. Kind of getting everybody organized, putting everyone into their sections. The Canadian national anthem. All of a sudden, some dude rolls out and starts like ripping it on an electric guitar, which was just amazing, right? Like just such a cool little
the muskets going off.
Yeah, muskets going off as the groups are leaving. Airplane flying over. Welcome back, P2A. Like there was just a lot of little details that they really kind of knocked out. Even just like to be able to warm up in that area. Tons of parking for everybody, but there was a track sort of
it's like a horse track or something. Yeah.
There's some sort of track, but just to be able to kind of warm yourself up, there was a lot of space for the riders, so everybody could spread out, everybody could get ready, and then you could just kind of spin a few laps just to kind of get your legs going, which was really, really nice. And I think for us, after having coming off, freezing cold riding for the last number of months, to get to, feel some sun on your face and have a ride in plus temperatures, was pretty incredible. And I mean, for us, it was our first time, but from what we, what they told us, this was like probably the best weather they've maybe ever had for the race, right? So I think we were really, really spoiled for a first experience. But just like, I can't wait to go and do it next year. It's, you know what I mean? Like, now that we kind of got our feet wet and we know what we're getting ourselves into, I think that we can even better prepare for what's about to come. But overall, I think the team, we really knocked it out. I think that everybody had an amazing time. I think that everybody was well prepared with nutrition, like lots of the stuff that we've been talking about on the podcast. Like, it was really cool to be able to bring it all back together and put it into like a real world application.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it really was, I think, almost everybody, everybody, with the exception of maybe Kelly's, first real race. Like, we've done bush pig races before, we've done small little local races, but that's our first. I mean, 3,000 people down there at that race, like that's a large amount of people. I mean, there's 400 or so in the 100K, but like, there's a lot of people on course, and there's a lot of people you're racing against. I think that's the first time we've ever, or I can say for myself, had that kind of competition pressure, which was pretty cool. Evan, what was it like in the corral, like when we were waiting to leave the start gate with, hundreds of people in front of us and hundreds of people behind us, shoulder to shoulder? What was that feeling like?
It was pretty nerve-wracking. We'd been talking before we went down about how, put your hands on the drops and put your elbows out and be prepared to get jostled around, and rider crashes at the start and things like that. So like, all of that's going through your head, as you're waiting for the countdown to start, and like, everybody, you just hear like click, click, click of everybody's pedals getting snapped onto their shoes. And I don't know, like, it just, the more, like, the closer it got to the start time, the more the heart rate goes up, and you wonder what's going to happen, because like, I've never experienced anything like that before. And then, things, except for that one rider that crashed, I think things went pretty well leaving the chute. Like, there wasn't too much jostling.
There was a lot of bottles.
There was it was a yard sale of bottles.
I met a guy in the last, like, I guess the last 5K, and he was just cooked, and we were riding together laughing, and he was like, I was like, so how'd your race been? And he's like, well, pretty good considering I lost my bottle on the first corner. We had one bottle the whole race.
I can't believe people didn't go back. It kind of blew my mind. Like, you have hours to make up the 30 seconds it would take you to stop and go back.
Except you might get driven over.
That's true. That's true. So I've done a few of the summer solstice races, and a few other larger races throughout the time. So the mass start was not something that was entirely new to me. And the team that I typically race the summer solstice with, which is a 24-hour race at Albion, we always, like, the new guy always gets to be the first rider, because we're typically a 5-man team. So it's nice for everybody to get to experience what it's like to be in a mass start like that. So I would say that, and that's a 24-hour mountain bike race. This was definitely a little bit less chaotic. I found that there was, probably a similar amount of riders that were sort of starting in that front pack. But I just thought it was actually pretty nice and clean the way it came out. They had it nice and wide. The first, the lead-in was well put together.
I think so. There's a long lead-in too, which was nice. Like, you're able to, everyone kind of got themselves spaced out pretty quick. And I think people, with the distance that was going there, I think people really realized, like, it is important to get on someone's fast wheel, but at the same time, if you are an intermediate racer, someone that's new to it, you're really getting into the nitty gritty of it at the start is probably not worth it.
Yeah, you got time, man. Like, you got time. Like, and I think that's what, like, that was my interpretation. Like, I don't need to pass 15 guys in the first 30 seconds because I've got a few hours to get this sorted out and dialed in. And I think that was a level of comfort that you get when you're there with 8 other riders, like a team, right? So you have guys to lean on. You're looking for your teammates. It's a lot more comfortable than had you been going to an event of that size and doing it as a solo, right? So it was a really nice introductory.
I talked to Kelly about it. So now, for all of you guys listening, so there's 9 of us circus guys, all in our clown suits, racing together, and we stayed together for most of the race, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But Kelly was racing as well, and we were in wave 2, kind of middle of the wave, kind of middle back,
Sure.
having lots of fun. Kelly was up at the front. Now, the elite racers left first. The elite racers are all like they have points and all that kind of stuff. Then the VIPs and the people who have raced the Paris to Ancaster in past, or people that have Ontario licenses, they started after. Now for some reason, when they started the race, they let the elites go first. Then they waited a couple minutes. Then they let everybody else go. Now the issue with that, what Kelly was saying, was that he had no ability. So like he couldn't have ever put in a better time than the elites. Now, to anyone listening, obviously, like people that leave first out of the gate, it's a chip timer. So like as you pass the gate, it starts, and as you get on the other side, it ends. So like you're not directly racing against them. Like you are in time, but they are going to start a minute ahead of you. So like you're going to be expected to be a minute behind them. But because you can't get on their wheel, because you can't draft with the fastest of fast riders, you have no ability to kind of get in there. And that's what Kelly was saying. It was like, well, that was the only thing that maybe he was thinking it could have been a little better. Like, and as someone coming out of the gate hot, I think with the elite riders, that's their goal, is the fastest riders will be in front, and those are the guys that you want to draft behind, because you're going to get the biggest advantage drafting behind the fastest rider.
It almost should have been like the pros and the elites like could have gone together, and then maybe or even like have the VIPs go out with that group, right? And then just let everybody else. I assume that's
just
the way
have everybody just send
or just have everybody go, because really,
but maybe they were worried about some intermediate rider crashing into an elite rider or something like that, which would be pretty not so awesome. But like, I don't know. That was the only, and like I have no skin in the game there because I'm not that kind of racer that's gonna hold someone's wheel 40 kilometers an hour in a gravel race. But Kelly was like, hey, like maybe I could have done even better. He did, and he did very well.
He nailed it. Like he crushed that race for sure.
Yeah, on his dad's gravel bike.
Yeah,
aluminum gravel bike. Yeah. one by with like a 40 in the front, spinning at like 30. I think his average speed was like 36 km an hour.
That's impressive, man. He's an animal.
Yeah, absolute animal. So like the start was pretty awesome. I mean, the first bit of the race, we were all kind of, for the most part, able to stay together. Yep. Evan, you were in the first group that ended up dropping back.
Yeah.
With Frank and his unfortunate. What happened there?
I don't know. Like I fell off the back about 15 kilometers in. I just decided I was going to go a little bit slower. Because again, you've got a lot of time to make up, and I feel like I'm a better second half rider than I am a front half. So I was trying to conserve my energy a little bit, and so I fell off the back, and that was about kilometer 15, I guess. And then as I rounded the corner and started going down a hill, it was kilometer 22, and I saw Frank off to the side, and he had to fix his flat tire. And I just remembered like thinking what it's like to ride by yourself, and have to constantly be in the wind. And so the amount of time it takes Frank to change a tire is pretty short. So I pulled over and we got his tire changed, and then the two of us just kind of piggybacked one in front of the other until we caught a group. And then because of his bike fit, I guess Frank had only ridden it one time, and his quads were starting to bother him a little bit. So we kind of held back a little bit there. And then we went through one of the mud chutes and then under the train bridge, and I noticed that he was with another group. So he had said earlier on in the race for me to just go ahead, and I did. I took my opportunity there and started riding with other people. But yeah, like I think we probably did 20 or 30 kilometers more or less on our own until we caught up. Like the 70s, they passed us. The main group of them flew past us, and then some of the stragglers that were behind the main group but still fresher, we fell in with them.
There you go.
And sorted it out. And then after that, I just kind of like piggybacked on people. So I'd see a couple of riders up ahead that were going the speed I'd want to go at, and I'd ride to catch up to them and then draft them for a bit. And yeah,
that was kind of the game, right?
It was,
You could stay like we were together, what, 55, 60K anyways.
Yeah, so I think kind of in the beginning, I just sort of, I tried to push pace a little bit, and probably was like maybe 500-600 meters ahead of the group. And then probably in around the 10-15K mark, you guys kind of pulled in and caught up and hung with me, and we sort of started to pick up riders at that point and kind of maintained. Our group was really like tight together, I would say, until probably around the 40K mark, where we sort of went along. There was that gravel section that sort of ran parallel to the road, where all that had all the steel posts in the center. There was like a bunch. It was like a bunch of crossings in the trail.
That's where stuff started.
And that's when there was some really, really quick riders that were in that section, and a few of us, I think, kind of separated from the rest of the pack. So there was probably about, I think, 3 or 4 of us that kind of started to pull ahead in that section.
Trying to pull ahead to those faster riders.
Yeah, and we just kind of stuck, and we just kind of hung on their wheel for a little bit, and then we started pushing past those guys. And I think that, probably around the 45K mark, I think that you and I, John, we kind of, and Andrew, and Matt Marsh was with us a little bit at that point. But I think then kind of the two of us just sort of really kind of took off and found some riders that we were probably pushing around consistently like 30K an hour. We were moving through a good portion of it. And then the two of us just kind of hung out there until I think around 55-ish. That's when we got into like that really, really heavy mud. There was a section that just ran along. I don't know if it was along a river. Anyways, there was a really, really long muddy section. And I just remember we came out of that and you were like, getting off my bike just killed my legs. Like my legs are
It
beat.
locked up, man.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing. Like pedaling the bike, no problem. Getting off, as soon as my feet touched the ground, I started walking. It was like, yo, what the hell? They just locked out.
Yeah. So you and I kind of hung out together, I think, for about another 5K.
Yeah.
I said, like, hey, let's go snag that group that was just out in front of us. So we snagged that group. And then I was feeling good, so I just kind of, I was like talking with you, and I'm like, hey man, like this is what we came here for. We only got about 40K left. Let's put the pedal to the metal here. So, so I really kind of dropped the hammer at that point and really started to push myself. Just recognizing I felt really good. I had good hydration. I had prepared really well with my game plan was some type of nutrition, whether it's like a caffeinated gummy or a gel or something like that every 10 kilometers. So I did kind of stuck with that and really figured out my my hydration as well. So my plan was a 750 ml bottle every 30K, which I stuck to like pretty much bang on. So I was at 60. I was feeling really, really good, and like I had a lot of leg left. So I just started mashing and just kind of pulled away, and that's where we sort of separated from each other. I found some riders, caught a bunch of guys that I'd seen earlier on, and chatted with them a little bit. And then just slowly started grabbing riders that you could tell were had pushed themselves too hard to start. Strong riders, but they were just starting to fade a little bit. So every time I would catch up to one of those guys, I said, hey guys, like jump on. And I was really trying to be like really motivational and grabbing as many guys as I could and just tried to drag them really through 70 to 90K. Like I've been doing a lot of the weekend before, I'd been doing a fair amount of riding on Manitoulin straight into headwinds. So the little bit of headwind that we found at the race that I think affected a lot of riders. Like I just don't think they were really ready for it to fight like a headwind for hours on end. For me, I was like, holy man, like I was really ready. Like I trained just by fluke the weekend before, had trained really hard riding headwinds, so it wasn't bothering me. So I was able to carry a solid group of riders for like 20K, and they were all very, very appreciative. And then around the 90K mark, I just put it down even further and kind of left them behind, and just kind of mashed all the way through to the end, and was really, really happy with my race. Like I think that everything.
Yeah, you should be.
Everything really came together for me. It was one of the best performances I've had, I think, on a bike. Like I really am really pleased with the way it turned out. And
yeah, you smoked your time.
it was just, and the whole event was amazing, right? Yeah. Like just right front to back. I thought that everybody did did an excellent job. The team did really well. It was really cool to see everybody kind of come together. We had an amazing support crew, like with, you know, the wives and the girlfriends being there, and you know, taking photos and cheering us on, and you know, like there was a lot of really, really awesome things that happened throughout that day. So John, when you mentioned maybe around that 60K mark where you sort of kind of came out of that mud section, I think that something happened. You and Andrew kind of caught each. You guys started
so
playing
I was,
around there, right?
It was bad. So I would say you had maybe, after coming out of that mud section and then we put the hammer down, we got into this like single track kind of section that like, it was a long section, man. 5-10K long, like single track section, and no mud, just regular gravel. And you had maybe, I don't know, 100 meters on me, and I was like, oh, I gotta catch him. What am I doing? Like, I'm working so much harder here than I would be at your wheel. I just need to be at your wheel. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna pick it up a notch. So I picked it up a notch, and I didn't have as much in the tank as I thought I did. So I'm not built for distance. I'm built definitely for speed at a moment. So I wasn't able to catch it, and but then we're still maybe 150 meters from me now, and I'm like, fuck, it's not that far. I gotta be able to pick it up. And I burned right out, and then I wouldn't see you about maybe 400 meters. I could still see you, and I put the hammer down. I'm like, I gotta do it, and I gained, but I wasn't in the right number, so I was just burnt. So then I was riding by myself for 15K, just trying to like, and it's funny, you talk about bonking, you talk about that kind of stuff all the time, and it is really a mental game of like, you just can't let yourself fall into that kind of stuff. And you just got to keep, and that's what it was. It was just, you know, keeping my head on, keep looking straight, keep doing what I'm doing, don't stop, keep going. And I remember going through this freaking farmer's field. And the farmer's field was wet and soggy and just grass. And I looked down at my Garmin, and I'm going like 15 kilometers an hour, and I'm just hating life. And I'm like, this is awful. And I will say my highlight of the race, other than the horns, which was unbelievable, was my mirror. So I had my mirror underneath, and every once in a while you glance to see if a rider's coming up on you. A bunch of the time, actually, before this, one thing that killed me even more, the 70K guys started catching up on me. So they released the 70-kilometer racers, and I'm going down the road before the farmer's field, and I see a group in my mirror coming up at me. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Riders coming up on me. I'm going to start picking up pace. I'm going to try to merge with them, and I'll catch on their wheel. I'll hold them, and you know, this will be great. I can get a little bit of a break. So I pick up speed, get just above 30, feeling good, feeling okay. I got a little bit of gas left in the tank, but the riders pass me. I grab their wheel. I'm on their wheel for 3 or 4 seconds. I look down at my freaking Garmin. They're doing 40.
Yeah, they were clipping.
Oh, I just blew up.
Yeah.
They probably... I had no idea what had happened. I was like, I don't understand how such a fast rider could be behind me at this point.
Yeah, it was weird.
I didn't clue in that there was a 70-kilometer group on the same track at that point for some reason. I probably did it 3 times. I tried to catch them like 3 times. And I reached a point where I started looking in the mirror, and judging by their sunglasses and their helmets, I could roughly decide on whether or not they're a significantly faster rider than I can hold right now. and anyways, and I get this farmer field, and I'm dying. I'm hating life. And I look down in my mirror, and I see the circus jersey. And I'm like, oh no, I've got a cloud coming up. And it was Andrew. So Andrew called me, and if you guys don't know Andrew's also a very small guy like myself. And we're definitely not built for distance. Andrew came up behind me, and he took the pole for, I don't know, 3 or 4 kilometers, and just gave me just enough juice in my legs. And then we started swapping back and forth. And then Professor Woodcock came up behind me. He caught us, and then he took a pole for a bit, and we kind of rode together through the mud chutes. After the mud chutes, we lost Professor Woodcock there, and it was just really me and Andrew to the last climb, and we made up the climb, and away we went. It was really good, but it was definitely a team effort, and that's a really interesting, a cool thing that you don't really think about all that much, especially with races. Like, you're very fortunate. We were fortunate anyways to have a group to go down with. The even just the first 50, 60K, we had a group pretty well the whole time. You had the ability to draft and switch and that kind of stuff. Like that made a huge difference. Having to try to rely on the other people to support you is very, very tricky. Because if they turn it up in a point where you can't, it's going to put the hurt on, and that's what makes you get dropped.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was kind of what I ended up doing, although I wasn't with really anybody from the circus. I would just grab onto random groups and stuff like that, and I rode with these two guys. I never caught their name, but I rode with these two guys, I don't know, maybe 10K or so, and I caught up to them and I said, like, I've just happened to meet you guys and I'm going to tag along for a bit if that's all right. And they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. And so they started doing their switching out, and I said, like, I can take a turn up front. And as soon as I took a turn up front, they just kind of like dropped off and I was on my own again. So I had to like pedal again to catch another group. But like being my first actual real race, more than anything, I've got a lot of takeaways from it, and understanding how to ride and not end up by yourself, and to get yourself into a group and to be part of, like, you know, maybe an informal peloton or whatever, and at least take your turns, and it just helps everybody, right? And so I spent most of the race just catching up to people,
which is exhausting.
Well, it's exhausting, but it was like, the way I looked at it is I would ride with a group of people, and if they were going faster than I wanted to go, then I would pick out the next group and see if we were catching up to them. And if they were, then I would drop off of the group I was following and ride with the group that was going a little bit slower. And then if I found that they were going too slow for me, once my legs and, you know, once I felt like I was able to go faster again, then I would just wait until somebody else passed me, and then I'd pull out around and I'd catch up to them. And like I would just, you know, do the trade-off back and forth. So I sort of like continued to ride. It was like, you know, kind of it wasn't a steady pace at all. But again, like, it was a learning experience, and I think probably understanding more that I need to be able to hold somebody's wheel that's consistent instead of like switching back and forth to groups. But I mean, it was better than riding by myself.
Yeah,
for sure. You can't, and that's what Matt Marsh, I was talking to him, and he said like he did like 40K by himself, and I was like, that's the worst. Like, that's like, you're doing so much more work doing that than you are trying to hold someone's wheel. It makes a huge difference. Let's talk nutrition, guys. I mean, we were fortunate, most of us were able to do, like, we did a pretty big ride the week before. Went and put 100K out with like a lot of elevation, like more elevation than was at Paris to Ancaster, and got to try some nutrition, play with some stuff. But you know, you did some rides in the islands to play with some things. Nutrition, I mean, I brought maybe even too much food. My issue was not enough water, so I bought 2 bottles. We were thinking that maybe we were gonna stop at the refill station if we had to refill water. It was inconveniently at the point where I was trying to catch you, Bernetti, that we went through the water station, and I was like, do I try to catch Bernetti, or do I get the water station and then ride by myself? And I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm going to catch Bernetti. I'm not going to ride by myself. Instead, I rode by myself with no water. So
the best of both worlds.
Which the thing I didn't think about, because it was fine. I had enough water to make it through the race, and I wasn't overly dehydrated. The problem is in the last, I'd say 10K, maybe 15K, I couldn't eat any of the gels, and I couldn't eat any of the the blocks, because I didn't have enough water to really wash it down. And like really, it was like almost like pasty. And that was the issue. Is I needed to. Really 3 bottles would have been the case if I was going to do that. But otherwise, like gels and blocks. What about you, Bernetti?
So I've been over the last like few years. I've really been trying to focus on longer riding. Spending a lot of time solo long riding. So, like the complete opposite of you guys, how you really like to be on the back of somebody's wheel. I like to be out front. I just like the feeling of not having a tire in front of me. I actually don't like trying to pace behind somebody because it throws off my rhythm, just because I do so much solo riding. So that piece of it for me, like I would prefer to use more energy and ride in the front than to conserve energy and ride behind somebody, because it throws off, like for me, just being my cadence is really important to me. And when I'm like pedal, not pedal, not pedal, like that, it drives me bonkers. Like I would rather just hammer and get out in front, and like I'll pull you all day. Like that's just my preference. So, but what it gets back to is that I have really I know myself and my nutrition for 100 or 150k rides really, really well, just based on what I've been up to over the last number of years. So I know for myself personally, like I need a 750 ml bottle with, I really like High Five is the caffeinated electrolyte that I really like. So it's a tab and a half in a 750 ml bottle for every 30 kilometers is exactly what I need. Like that is the level of hydration that I need for my body. It's like what I've been doing, like I said, for the last number of years, and it works really, really well for me. For this race, because I knew I would be pushing a little bit harder, heart rate was, probably like 15 to 20 beats higher than I would typically go if I'm just going for a regular ride. So we had the E-Load carbohydrates powder that was added into each of the bottles. And we had tried that on the Fat Viking, and I knew that was something that that will become part of my regular what I do. I just typically I'm just grabbing a granola bar or a couple granola bars when I'm just going on the regular weekend 100-kilometer rides, which I'm not you're not pushing that kind of pace. But like I said, I think that was a really big key for me, is I knew that I needed 3 bottles. Everybody else was not sure how much. I said no, absolutely, I am bringing 3 bottles, 2 on the frame, carrying 1. Each one is going to have the right amount of caffeinated electrolytes. It's going to have the right amount of carbohydrate, which is just a liquid carbohydrate that you can add into your drink that is flavorless. It doesn't make it thick. It doesn't make it chalky. It's basically just tastes it has no flavor. So just adding in just fuel. And I'd also set myself, as I kind of mentioned earlier in the podcast, that I want every 10 kilometers I'm going to have some kind of nutrition. So I had a number of different gels with me, and also some caffeinated shot blocks, the just caffeinated gummies. So like I said, through the first 60-ish K, I maintained that like clockwork. Every 10K, boom, took something. It alternated depending on how I was feeling. If I was feeling okay, I would just do a gummy. If I was feeling like, oh, you know what, I need a little bit more, I had a variety of different gels, some of them sodium, some of them just caffeine, some of them, like I said, so just a variety pack of different, some thicker, some thinner, and I just kind of alternated between that. And then at the 60K mark, I turned it up and I started the same routine, but I did that every 5K. So just really, I doubled down on what I was doing for nutrition, and again, maintaining that just watching where I was at every time I would check my bottle, just making sure that every 10K I was about a third of a bottle. And again, that's just all experience. I know when I'm taking a sip, how much of that bottle is left and where I'm at based on my mileage, so I can keep it really dialed in. Yeah. And again, that's just experience. That's me. Evan, John, whoever, everybody's going to have, they need to figure out, how much do you need to consume to maintain your energy?
Well, and also even just, what you need in the bottles. Something I've realized is if I'm running 2 bottles and I run both them with electrolytes, both them with Scratch or Noon Tabs, I can't do it. I need one bottle with water.
Okay.
Water, or what I've been doing is using that the carbohydrate in the water, because you can't taste it. Yeah. But I need one that's just water, because I find the sweetness sometimes just kills me.
If they market an electrolyte powder that's got like half the sweetness to it,
Have the sweetness.
they like that would
know.
be dynamite.
I can't sometimes like and I get it. It's like you know you would think that you're out, you're doing this much energy, you want the sugars, you want the sweet. But for me, like sometimes yes,
Yeah.
but sometimes especially when I'm really burning, I need like water. Like I'll have my like nutrition,
Yeah.
and then I need like just the water.
Sure.
Like, it can't taste like anything. If as soon as it tastes like something, I almost feel like I need to have water also.
Right. Yeah.
Makes
Like
sense.
I said, it's just everybody's going to be unique.
Absolutely.
Right. And that only just that comes with experience, and that comes with riding long rides. And you can guess at it, but until you start doing it, you know, you got to do you, right?
Yeah.
And there is no magic equation that's going to work for every single rider.
No, you're correct.
So I'm just, like I said, I'm at a bit of an advantage because I've been
you do a lot
I've been
of long
playing with
rides,
that.
yeah.
I've been playing with that for years now. So, you know, I nailed it. I nailed my nutrition and my hydration for this ride.
I think
like
was
I,
a huge advantage. Like that's something. Well, Evan, like what was your nutrition like? How did that go?
I'm never doing goldfish again. That was a mistake. I had planned on having the goldfish because they are like a salty snack, and I was running into cramping on the Good Friday 100-kilometer ride that we did, and I thought that I would need like more salts, more electrolytes, more, you know, that kind of stuff to stave off the cramps. So I packed a bunch of goldfish. I just put them loose in my frame bag. I put the salt cubes. I put caffeine cubes. And then I had
mix.
some. Yeah, I just had some just like your grandma's like candy dish, right? Like
Yeah.
just all sorts of stuff in there. And I just had that in my frame bag. And at first it was okay, the first couple of like handfuls of goldfish, but then when you're kind of like breathing heavy and it's time to eat and the goldfish are dry and your mouth is full and you got to breathe through your nose, but you really can't because you need like the whole mouthful of air kind of thing. Like it was just bad. And then the only thing that was good about it was it forced me to drink. So like because my mouth is dry from the goldfish, I need to drink something. And I was, so I had the one water bottle that had the scratch electrolytes in it, and I'd also added in a scoop of the carb, like that E-load stuff. And then I had another water bottle that only had the E-load stuff in it, which was just like plain water. So it was good in that sense. But I would definitely bring a third water bottle because it's not that I ran through the water bottles before I made it to the water station. It was that I didn't drink as much as I should have because I was worried about running through all of the water. So even if I never used it, having it in my back in the pocket
Would have been nice.
it would have been. It just would have taken that extra thing in my head out, and I wouldn't have had to think about that. But what I found that really worked well for me was the stuff that we picked up on our way down. Those sodium, the caffeine stuff.
Those gels.
But like seriously, I can't remember what you call them. Those the ones that taste like Eat More.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
the
peanut
grind.
butter, those ones are
Yeah,
nice.
so like for just nutrition stuff, like just to have like carbs in and replenishing glycogen stores, those are dynamite. The other things that are really good for me are those maple syrup and ginger.
The maple syrup ones are
because
10 out of 10.
yeah, and they slide down your throat. They're
so
so
thin.
liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So thin.
and they're
that's
perfect.
That's something I find with a lot of gels is they're so thick
Yeah.
that you're washing it down with stuff. But those and they hit you fast.
Yes, they do.
Super
like
fast.
in minutes.
Yeah, and that one has caffeine in it too. I
Yeah.
got the caffeine
Yeah,
ones
so
down.
that was really good. The other thing, though, that I will be packing on long rides is mustard.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So how did you bring mustard, Bernetti?
No.
Okay, so mustard. So this came from Todd. Todd had said that he talked to, I believe it was Rusty.
Yeah.
And Rusty said you have to bring mustard. And so you know what? I took one pack of Todd's freaking mustard packs, like little ketchup packs and mustard packs that you get from freaking Burger King. I put one of those just in my frame bag. And we were doing one of the hills. It was rated nearing the end, but it wasn't the last one. It was one of them anyways. And I was beat, and my legs, I could feel them starting to lock, and like just the quad was just firing really hard, like starting to lock up. And I was like, oh no, this isn't good. And I'm historically pretty good, like put power down in an instant kind of guy. And if I can't do that, that's kind of how I ride. Is like burst, slow down, burst, slow down, burst, slow down. It's like if I can't do that, it doesn't really work. I can't just consistently ride at a pace. So I I went full Hail Mary. I was like, I gotta like, what's in this bag? And I also had no water at this point, so I was very limited in what I could eat. I'm like, mustard, sick. How bad could it be?
Yeah.
And I sent it. Number one, went down well.
Yeah.
Went down well. Did not need to have water with it, which was pretty cool. Number two, within 30 seconds, I was like, I went to go put power down. Legs were there. Legs were there. No cramp. Nothing. I was like, that is unfreaking believable. My only regret is not having more mustard.
Yeah, I know. Me too. That was mine because I cramped hard at the last 2 kilometers, and I could have had like, instead of a water bottle, I should have put like a mustard bottle.
Just a full mustard
Just
bottle.
a big bottle of French's. Yeah, magic ticket. Yeah, no, that's interesting, and I would like to try that. Like because I mean, touch wood, I've really never struggled with cramping while cycling. Like it's never been an issue for me. Yeah. Running, on the other hand, attempting a few triathlons, I have locked up really bad on the run.
You're batting 100 on that.
100%. Yeah, there's no chance I'm making it through a 5K run or whatever the distance. It's not me. But yeah, it's interesting to hear the different perspectives, and I think that as you guys start to ride more regular, longer rides, you'll just figure it out. That's all it is, right? It's just time. It's just time and experience, and just playing with different equations.
But it's even different when you're racing too, because it's figuring out like everything is
amplified.
Like, it's so much more, and things hit you faster, and then like you have aid stations, so it's like to use or not to use. Like there's some stuff there that, you know, in elevation. I mean, there wasn't a lot of elevation in this, which was awesome. But like, you know, for me it was sprinting. Like I'm a strong sprinter. Yeah. But it was a lot of like sprinting from one group to another group, and then trying to, if you're falling behind, you have to catch back up. There was a lot of like instances where it wasn't consistent riding for me, and like you go sprint and you're like, oh, I'm definitely pushing on a burnt leg right now. Yeah. And that you can only do that so many times before the leg just like stops. And I hadn't experienced that before until on one of the Zwift races. I finished the Zwift race on one leg. Like it's like my other leg, I couldn't push with it. I had to unclip and just like let it flop.
Just let it be a dead leg.
Exactly. And then this is like, I mean, obviously this race that happened a couple times.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, being like almost a week, well, half a week, I guess, out. What would you say what was the biggest takeaway or the biggest thing that you found out about riding, like with yourself or in a group or, you know, as the race? Like, what would you say was the biggest thing you took away from the race?
Buy better horns. Buy better horns. So we brought the circus bought horns down, and we honked our horns the entire race and had a lot of fun. I'd say the entire race, but it's really as long as the horns lasted, which is not very long. Like everyone's horns, like seems like they're good for about 500 honks, which lasts about 3.5 minutes. We did a lot of honks very fast, and then either people lost the backs of the horns or otherwise they just stopped working. But on a more serious note, I'd say it's like putting in more distance. I mean, the thing about this race is it's like Paris to Ancaster, specifically, is it's so early in the season. There was only like a week and a half's worth of time to ride outside, which was unfortunate. Yeah. We definitely had enough saddle time in. It would have been nice to get a couple long rides in. But I think my biggest takeaway is group riding and making sure that the group you're going to ride with, like our group, we were fortunate to have a lot of riders that were the same ability level, and I think that really, really helped us. And I think finding ways in season, again, Paris to Ancaster being kind of inconvenient, being so early, to ride in a group and get comfortable riding in a group and get comfortable being on someone's wheel, and like when someone sprints to catch another group to keep up with them and staying tight, and how much power that saves in your legs and how much fatigue that saves you by staying in a group is totally underrated, and it's something that I think it's unfortunate for a rider that shows up to one of these races with like not a lot of knowledge on that front to just try to win, do the thing himself. Like you really got to stay on someone's wheel, and if you're staying on people's wheels that don't know, even if you're not riding as a group, if you're not going down with a group of 9 people like we were, you're still learning how to ride in a group so that you can help other people, but other people can also help you. Because if you're not comfortable staying a couple inches from someone's tire, or even worse, if you're a bad person for someone to draft, they ain't gonna help you, man. Mm-hmm. Like if you're on the brakes every time someone's behind you, like you have to learn these etiquette things, and you have to learn where to be aggressive together. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, the biggest takeaway, and again, this is partially race related, but also really getting back to the huge advantage of getting a bike fit, is just I now have a better understanding of what my cadence and heart rate, and again, I still need to get the power piece. It would be really nice to race with power meters. Just starting to put together the last piece of the equation, because I know now where I can maintain my heart rate and at a race pace versus just a ride pace. So I know where my level, like my numbers are that are comfortable, that I now know I can maintain at a longer distance. And just really, really happy with how I know how to climb now, and how I know how to descend, and how I know how to manage my power output, even though I don't have a power meter. I think that between my cadence and my heart rate, I'm kind of putting those two numbers together. So I'm just starting to continue to build my racing inventory for myself, right? Because I'm just looking at my I don't know, like at my values, and being able to compute that within minutes. Then now throwing the nutrition piece in behind it, and really starting to dial in a lot of the information that I've been kind of taking in and reading more about, like cycling and different things along those lines, and putting that into practice. So for me, I think that was the biggest takeaway, is to trust in what I think about myself and what I know about myself. And I'm now feeling more comfortable in like how I've prepared myself. I know my body and I know what I'm capable of, and it was, I guess it's just that, to trust in that, to trust in like that I know myself and know what I'm capable of. And I would say that I don't need to save as much, because I probably could have pushed even a little bit harder. But I didn't want to just blow myself up.
You don't want to blow up.
I didn't want to blow up. So I think that I probably had another 15% in the tank that I probably could have pushed even harder. There were some sections where I consistently maintained, but I think I could have put the hammer down about a 10 or 15K earlier, and really either tried to ramp up my average speed by 2K per hour overall, or hammered those sections maybe an extra 5K per hour through those 2 extra 10K sections. I still had more gas. I still had more in the tank that I could have dug into. So there's room for improvement. But yeah, I think it's just being able to trust in myself and recognizing that all of the work that our race team has been putting in is paying dividends, because I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about what I'm capable of. And now just like it'll be fun to translate that knowledge to other people, like even throughout the race, like noticing small things, like having hints and stuff like that for Matt Marsh, for example, who is a similar rider to my size, and just seeing things that I'm like, Matt, do this, Matt, try this. Like, I think that was one thing that really came out of the circus, is we are a team that supports each other. And if you see something that you can try and help a rider, I don't think anybody takes it as a negative if somebody is trying to give you advice, right? And that's really cool to see our team evolving that way, because it's it's not every man for himself, it's every man for the team. And it's like, you know, you stopping and hanging out with Frank when he realized that he had a blown tire, like what that probably brought to Frank's race was huge, right? Like just him knowing that there was a teammate that was there to support him. And you know, you and I riding together for a while, and then, you know, that kind of coming apart, but then Andrew coming up and dragging you along, and like it was just it was really cool to see our team evolving, right? And like
work well together the whole time.
100%, man.
The whole story, I think, at the end of the day for us, it was the team. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
On the funny note of power meters there, I mean, you like, I found even, so my power meter wasn't working, but we'll talk about that in a second. But something, riding a bike with the power meter that wasn't working, but doing so much training on Zwift, I found myself thinking about power. So you find yourself, even if you don't have power displayed, it's something you don't usually think about. Like, obviously, you know when you're pushing harder and you know when you're not pushing as hard, but you can actively think about
perceived rate of exertion.
Exactly.
Right? So, you know, I know you've been doing some reading, so just trying to find that like perceived rate of exertion, like where you're at. Okay, like I'm at a 6, I'm at a 7. Like I am now like utilizing that in all of my riding. Like it doesn't matter if I'm going for a 20K ride or if I'm going for a 150K ride. My perceived rate of exertion is something that I'm actively paying attention to,
right?
And I know,
and even just how much each pedal stroke and how much weight you're putting into each pedal stroke, and how it was pretty cool. I found a couple times, like when we were out front and we were pushing that first bit, and we were pushing pretty hard, especially when we were in the group with those faster riders. We were flying.
Yeah, we were cooking,
and we were out front with them and taking pulls with them and doing that kind of stuff. And my power meter wasn't working, so it was off. I didn't have any cadence. I didn't have any power. So I was riding, and I'm like, I know I'm a small guy I mean, everyone listening to this podcast should have probably met me at some point, but I'm like 5'6", 130 pounds. And I'm supposed to, my FTP, I don't know, 220, 230. I'm not, like, if I can hold in around 220 for, I don't know, a reasonable amount of time, and then I kept looked down, and the power meter would turn on at some point, and the Garmin would pick it up, and it's like, power meter found, and I looked down, 440 watts. Yeah. I'm like, well, that's not good. Yeah.
Right? There is a reason that you are burning out, sir. Yeah.
In the middle of the farmer fields going, fucking John, why do you do 440 watts of that LD? Why are you doing that?
Oh my gosh.
Doing it. And anyways, Evan, your answer to your own question.
I think similar to Bernetti, just learning how to ride within my metrics and, you know, use my heart, because I don't have power meters, so learning how to use my heart rate to gauge where I'm riding at and how long I can sustain that. And also, I think probably the biggest rabbit hole now that I'm going to be going down is cramping. Because everything that I thought I knew about cramping and how to mitigate it is wrong. So, like, it's like hydration and electrolytes do account for a little bit, but it's mostly neuromuscular fatigue and blocked pathways from your muscles to your brain. And so it's understanding how to open those, and like there are things that you can do. I mean, part of it is definitely being stronger, but at some point when even the strong people start to cramp, it's because they've got these blocked pathways. And so now I'm going to have to figure out how to open them and keep them open, and what to do when they start to close. So that's your research. That's my research
project for the year.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, we'll have a cramping podcast.
I'll be submitting my paper in 6 months. Yeah.
You and Beavers.
Yeah.
Peer reviewed.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it, guys. I mean, that's us, the circus down at Paris to Ancaster this last week. So podcast hopefully goes out tomorrow. You probably noticed by this point that there's no video. That's because I cannot find the battery to my camera. So
shocker.
Hopefully by next podcast I either have a new battery or I found my old one. But I think that's it, guys. If you guys have questions about Paris to Ancaster, if you guys want to come out and do it next year, if you guys want to come and ride with us next year on this, reach out, let us know. If you guys have questions about things we went through, how the race was, how muddy the mud chutes were, and how the gravel was, please reach out, leave a comment, ask away. But otherwise, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure you guys tell your friends, and I guess that's it from everyone out here. Have fun out there.
All right.
Cheers, guys. See you soon.
See ya.